Regiment Non-Commissioned Officer Induction Ceremony. Today we recognize the transition of soldiers
Good afternoon, peace and blessing. Most gracious God, by whose name we yield to you hearty thanks and praise of the ground and the gap, your merciful. Give thanks. We give thanks for the ground that is the soil of liberation, rooted in freedom and defended by the brave. We give thanks. We give thanks for the drops of dew that have gone before to nourish, create, and cultivate a climate conducive to the production of integrity and pride. We give thanks. We give thanks for these young men and women who are the blessed harvest, active in their growth, fruitful in their works. Continue to bless them and nurture their development as they now overlook the welfare of their soldiers and the accomplishment of the mission. Help them to live up to the NCO Creed, the yardstick by which to measure oneself. Help them to stand tall as leaders, teachers, friends, and as non-commissioned officers, the backbone of the Army we serve in. We give thanks. We give thanks to you in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Today's official party consists of Command Sergeant Major Chastity Lee, 2-1 Aviation Regiment Sergeant Major, and Command Sergeant Major Albert Serrano, the Combat Aviation Brigade Command Sergeant Major. Please be seated. Since the earliest days of our Army, the non-commissioned officer has been recognized as one who instills discipline and order within a unit. In his instructions for the sergeants and corporals, Baron Frederick von Steuben wrote in the regulation for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States, commonly known as the Blue Book, that each sergeant is responsible for the soldiers committed to their care. Sergeants must pay particular attention to their conduct in every respect and keep themselves and their arms always clean. In dealing with recruits, they must exercise all their patience, and while on the march, the non-commissioned officers must preserve order and discipline. The Creed of the non-commissioned officer has served as a guiding document for the NCO since its inception in 1973. Though its concepts have always been a part of our Corps, the major paragraphs begin with the three letters N, C, and O. The Creed inspires NCOs and serves as a compass to guide us down the right path. Today, our new NCOs will affirm their commitment to the professionalism of our Corps as they officially become a part of the backbone of the Army. The induction ceremony builds and emphasizes the pride we share as members of an elite Corps. Today's ceremony also serves to honor the memory of those men and women who have served as non-commissioned officers with pride and distinction over our nation's rich history. Induction ceremonies serve as a rite of passage. They allow NCOs of a unit to build and develop a cohesive bond, support team development, and serve as a legacy for future NCO induction ceremonies. Please stand for the lighting of the NCO.
Red symbolizes the courage and the strength of the non-commissioned officer, the blood we've shed in defense of our country.
White symbolizes the purity and commitment of the non-commissioned officer and our dedication to honest and integrity in deeds and kindness.
Blue symbolizes the valor and pride of the non-commissioned officer and our participation in battles fought across the waters of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the lighting of the eternal flame by Sergeant First Class Stretch.
With the lighting of this candle, we are reminded of the non-commissioned officers that came before us, the ones that led our forefathers to victory, preserving our rights and freedoms. The eternal flame has no rules or regulations. It is a silent pact with our forefathers to train and protect their sons and daughters, ensuring our children's children have a future. We, non-commissioned officers, stand before you, willing to accept the challenges before us. We believe in the Corps of non-commissioned officers and the power endowed in all of us. We will support the chain of command and protect the rights of those in our care. As a leader, teacher, and mentor, we will lead from the front. Trust in us, for we are the backbone of the Army.
Please be seated.
Treat me with respect, Sergeant, for no heart in the world is more loyal than the heart of an American soldier. Do not break my spirit with your words, Sergeant, for though I will do what you demand, your guidance, patience, and understanding will more quickly teach me to be, know, and do. Speak with me often, Sergeant, for the praise and counseling you give is expected. I'm an American soldier expecting to be trained. Discipline must be part of my life.
Train me, Sergeant, for I must learn to fight and win in the heat, cold, the wet, and the desert. Those who would be our enemies will use these elements. I must be prepared. I ask no greater glory, Sergeant, than to defend our country and our way of life against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Allow me that privilege, Sergeant. Provide me with necessities of food and drink, Sergeant. Train me to be self-sufficient, and that I may lead the way and stand ready, willing and able to protect you with my life if necessary, should your life be in danger.
Train me, Sergeant, that one day I too can be called Sergeant, trainer of soldiers, backbone of the Army. Train me to take those responsibilities that are yours. Train me, train my soldiers to be the greatest defenders of freedom in the world. Sergeant, train me to be a sergeant. I shall leave the Army knowing that with my last step and my last breath, my fate was always safest in your hands.
Sergeant, train me, that I too can earn the title of sergeant.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to introduce the guest speaker for today's event is the 2-1 Aviation Regiment Command Sergeant Major, Lee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us in our NCO Induction Ceremony. Lieutenant Colonel Anderson, Command Sergeant Major Serrano, Command Sergeant Major Narducci, Command Sergeant Major Burney, thank you. Distinguished guests, family, and friends of the Fighting Eagles, welcome, and thank you for attending the NCO Induction Ceremony. My name is Command Sergeant Major Chastity Lee, and I'm a Big Red 1 soldier, proudly serving in America's 1st Division. Soldiers, leaders, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome our guest speaker today. Command Sergeant Major Serrano has over 30 years of experience. He is the epitome of what a non-commissioned officer is. He leads by example, and he is absolutely a standard bearer. Without further ado, please welcome Command Sergeant Major Serrano.
Good afternoon. So what I want to say first is at some point before the end of the ceremony, we're going to get those candles lit. Just want to make sure there's a shirt of that. All right. Thanks for that introduction, Sergeant. All right. Good afternoon. Lieutenant Colonel Anderson, Command Sergeant Major Lee, Command Sergeant Major, distinguished guests, leaders, friends, family of the Fighting Eagles, and most importantly, to the non-commissioned officers we're about to honor. Welcome, and thank you for attending today's ceremony. My name is Command Sergeant Major Albert Serrano, and I am a Big Red 1 soldier, proudly serving in our nation's 1st Division. To begin, I'd like to thank this organization, and Sergeant Major Lee, for asking me to be a part of today's ceremony. I'm extremely honored. Events like the one here today are something we've somewhat forgotten about, placed less priority on, or simply could not find the white space to conduct. However, this is something special. Something to reflect on, and something we should celebrate. These young soldiers have reached a milestone in their career and deserve to be recognized for their efforts. Today, they join a time-honored corps, which is known as the backbone of the Army. I will now touch on a proud history and importance that our non-commissioned officer corps holds in our Army, and I am truly humbled for the opportunity to do so. Fun fact, and maybe you all get a chuckle out of this, I know I did. I find it quite humorous that now I am that guy. I'm that old crusty NCO, attempting to impart my wisdom on a group of young soldiers such as yourselves. For it seems it was not long ago, but it really has been a long time ago, I was in your seat, wishing the old man at the podium would wrap it up so I could go home for the day, call it wrap, right? But all kidding aside, right, the history of the United States Army non-commissioned officer dates back to 1775 with the birth of the Continental Army. Much like the Army itself, the NCO Corps did not copy the fundamental rules of just the British Army. It instead blended several different traditions of allied countries to create its own unique institution. To this day, this is the very reason our Army is the most dominant land force on Earth, and it will continue to be so for years to come. It is also said that 2 years earlier, the NCO Creed was believed to have started on the 4th floor of Building 4 at Fort Benning, Georgia. A simple white piece of paper with 3 letters building the framework of the creed, NCO. NCOs, you become a part of an organization that is respected all around the world. And today marks the official date that you joined the ranks of the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps. As I progressed through my military career and traveled the world wearing this uniform, It is without a doubt that every military organization and every army on earth wants to emulate what we have built with our NCO Corps. The rank that now sits on your chest comes with the obligation to continue this legacy and to build upon its traditions. The stripes you wear signify your responsibility to take care of the men and women you lead and should never be taken lightly. The Army has invested a great deal into each and every one of you. The emphasis on your development as a leader has been deliberate and calculated. It no longer matters what your specialty MOS is or the badges or patches that are sewn in your uniform, because as of today, you are defined as a non-commissioned officer, a leader of soldiers. I want to spend a few minutes now talking about a few areas that I believe will help you succeed as an NCO. These are not secrets or anything that you haven't heard many times before, but are just simply some fundamentals that will assist you to master the art of leadership. First of all, a non-commissioned officer must lead from the front and by example. Never ask your soldiers to do something that you are not willing to do with them. Spend time in the suck with them. Do not allow yourself to be absent during times of hard training. You are responsible and accountable for everything your soldiers do and don't do. Publicly praise your soldiers and make time to congratulate those who are doing the right thing. Take ownership of failure, never pass the buck. Listen to your soldiers, as something that may seem small to you might be a big deal to them. Train the standard, not the time. And finally, my absolute favorite part of our NCO creed. All soldiers are entitled to outstanding leadership. I, and now you, will provide that leadership. Here's a couple more thoughts on leadership. The longer I've worn this uniform, and the more people who have asked me about leadership over the years, has led me to firmly believe that leadership ultimately comes down to creating conditions of trust within an organization. The Army's definition of leadership states that leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. To achieve any amount of leadership, you must first gain and maintain the trust of those who you lead. This is applicable at every echelon in our Army, from the platoon level all the way up to the President of the United States. And every leader in this room will eventually have to make a hard decision. A decision that will affect the livelihood of those under your charge. In order to make these decisions effectively, you must have the trust of your followers. Your soldiers may not always agree with the decisions you make, but if your relationship with them is rooted in trust, I promise you, they will follow you. And they will do so with a sense of purpose. Colin Powell once said, "You will know you're an effective leader when your soldiers follow you, if only out of curiosity." Like many, I found this quote somewhat humorous, yet undeniably true. What he was really saying is that your soldiers trust you. They trust you enough to follow you into the darkest night, into the deepest valley, or up the tallest hill, without the guarantee of safety or success. I've seen plenty of examples of this throughout my career. A young leader who is undeniably cold, hungry, or tired, yet on the outside, does not appear to be any of the above. For he or she knows they must not falter, they must not fail, and they must not lose the trust and confidence of their subordinates. He or she knows that their soldiers are looking to them for purpose, for direction, and for the motivation to continue. As I close today, I want to thank you all for your service to this nation. We continue to be in an all-volunteer force in a time of global insecurity and turmoil that has left many at home fearful of our future. This nation is counting on you and those you lead to ensure our freedom and our way of life continues. I am proud to serve alongside each and every one of you. Thank you. Duty first.
Command Sergeant Major Lee will now present Command Sergeant Major Serrano with a token of appreciation for sharing his words of wisdom.
First Sergeants, do we have any non-commissioned officers to be inducted into the Corps of Non-Commissioned Officers?
Yes, Sergeant Major.
Who sponsors them for induction?
We do, Sergeant Major.
Each inductee will be presented with a copy of the NCO Creed and the NCO Charge by Command Sergeant Major Serrano and Command Sergeant Major Lee. Each inductee is also entering their name into the Fighting Eagle NCO Journal, commemorating their time with us and leaving their mark in the enduring history of our organization. The following NCOs are being inducted into the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps. Sergeant Keegan Achenbach. Sergeant Ashton Anthony. Sergeant Umaru Bari. Sergeant Scott Benson. Sergeant Chiara Bertoroni. Sergeant Ian Caffrey. Sergeant Rayvon Collins. Sergeant James Creighton. Sergeant Hime Davila. Sergeant Leon Edens. Sergeant Malik George. Sergeant Julian Green. Sergeant Stephen Hasdrup. Sergeant Rory Hubbard. Sergeant Kenneth Hudson. Sergeant Javier Ibanez. Sergeant Cameron Jones. Sergeant Malcolm Kelly. Sergeant Enoy Koo. Sergeant Casey Lonis. Sergeant Anthony Mendoza. Sergeant Olafemi Olatunji. Sergeant Gregory Oversby. Sergeant Demetrios Palapaitis. Sergeant Adam Fugler. Sergeant Alan Purser. Sergeant Aaron Randall. Sergeant Joseph Rance. Sergeant Zachary Rogers. Sergeant Alex Ruth. Sergeant John Sarandis. Sergeant Rashard Simon. Sergeant Dustin Spivey. Sergeant Kimberly Stalling. Sergeant Tristan Tate. Sergeant Hunter Terrell. Sergeant Jordan Tungy. Sergeant Brian Villegas. Sergeant Ian Weissman. Sergeant Jesse Wooten. Sergeant Justin Yeary. Sergeant David Young. Sergeant Darian Young. Sergeant Ole Zimanoff. Please help me congratulate the newly inducted non-commissioned officers. Inductees, please rise at this time for the charge to the non-commissioned officer and remain standing for the NCO Creed.
Please raise your right hand. I state your full name. Will discharge carefully and diligently the duties of the grade to which I have been promoted, and uphold the traditions and standards of the Army. I understand the soldiers of lesser rank are required to obey my lawful orders. Accordingly, I accept responsibility for their actions. As a non-commissioned officer, I accept the charge to observe and follow the orders and directions given by supervisors.
orders and directions given by supervisors,
acting according to the laws, articles, and rules governing the discipline of the Army. I will correct conditions detrimental to the readiness thereof. In doing so, I will fulfill my greatest obligation as a leader and thereby confer my status as a non-commissioned officer. You may lower your hand.
The creed of the non-commissioned officer.
the creed of the non-commissioned officer. No one is more professional than I. I am a non-commissioned officer, a leader of soldiers. As a non-commissioned officer, I realize that I am a member of the time-honored Corps, which is known as the backbone of the Army. I am proud of the Corps of non-commissioned officers, and will at all times conduct myself so as to bring credit upon the Corps, the military service, and my country, regardless of the situation in which I find myself. I will not use my grade or position to attain pleasure, profit, or personal safety. Confidence is my watchword. My two basic responsibilities will always be uppermost in my mind: the accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers. I will strive to remain technically and tactically proficient. I am aware of my role as a non-commissioned officer. I will fulfill my responsibilities inherent in that role. All soldiers are entitled to outstanding leadership. I will provide that leadership. I know my soldiers, and I will always place their needs above my own. I will communicate consistently with my soldiers and never leave them uninformed. I will be fair and impartial when recommending both rewards and punishments. Officers in my unit will have maximum time to accomplish their duties. They will not have to accomplish mine. I will earn their respect and confidence as well as that of my soldiers. I will be loyal to those with whom I serve, seniors, peers, and subordinates alike. I will exercise initiative by taking appropriate action in the absence of orders. I will not compromise my integrity nor my moral courage. I will not forget, nor will I allow my comrades to forget, that we are professionals, non-commissioned officers, leaders.
Please stand for the singing of the Big Red One song and the Army song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please join us immediately following the ceremony in congratulating our newly inducted non-commissioned officers. We invite all past and present Fighting Eagle NCOs to come forward and also make their mark in the Fighting Eagle NCO journey. Thank you again for the time you each have spent with us here today.